All right. Today we are, what's that? Presentation? It's not a presentation today. Somebody heard presentation. 3 people heard presentation and got very scared. It's not a presentation day. Who are the 3 that are presenting to us on Thursday? Is it 3 or just Bethany?
It's just Bethany.
Bethany, Joy, and Shem. Ah, quite the team there. You gonna make everything clear to them?
He's carrying it.
He's carrying the load?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right. You're going to be gone. It's all him. So are you going to like impersonate Joy and then impersonate Bethany?
He's going to have wigs and everything.
He's what?
He's going to have wigs and everything.
Wigs and everything. Skin tone?
Yep.
All right. All right, so today we got our second lesson or talk about public relations. Today, as opposed to last Monday, I want you to think about, each person think about what comes to mind when you hear the word public relations. Hopefully everybody thinks something different than last Monday. Or at least we had 2 absent. Did we have 2 absent last Monday? I don't know. Can't remember. We had 2 absent on Thursday. Let's see here. Devante, he's figured it out, but every once in a while I remember he's way up here. So he does get asked questions once in a while. Devante, what comes to mind today when you hear the word public relations?
A planned effort.
A planned effort, okay? Yeah, that's part of it, isn't it? Everybody's like, yeah, I remember hearing that. Megan.
A planned effort to influence public opinion.
To influence public opinion. All right. Let's see here. Haley. Yes. No, not what you think of public relations. What comes to mind when you hear the phrase public relations? It's an effort. Okay. All right. I can't call on you because I forgot your first name. So we'll leave you. You can just observe. Dave. Communication. What kind of communication? Two-way communication. And who's that communication between? Jacob.
You and the public.
You and the public. Yes, you and the public. How many different publics do you have? If we're using the term publics, how many different publics do you have? Sarah.
3 categories?
3. We have 3 publics, or 3 types of publics. And our first public is a Heather? Primary. And the second?
Secondary.
And the third?
Tertiary.
Tertiary, yes. Yeah, all right. So it's nice to know the terms, but who's a primary public? What kind of person fits into being a primary public? Sarah? Oh. Okay, let's by definition. That's an exact example, but by definition, Devante? Yeah.
A direct contact.
A direct contact. Yep. And once we hear direct contact, that should tell us what secondary is. That's class? Indirect. And tertiary is no contact. Right. Good. Now, then, a lot of places have an office of somebody who's their public liaison. Have you ever heard that term? A public liaison or a public relations officer. If a huge corporation might even have a chairman of public relations or something like that, VP public relations. But it really comes down to who. Who is involved, who in any organization is involved in public relations? Megan says, I know that one. Everyone. That's right. Everyone. In different aspects of it, the person who keeps the bathroom clean is involved in public relations. Sarah, you're involved in public relations. There's a story. It's true. Way back when we were having, way back in the 70s, when we first had our interactions with the public and all that, some media people came, or somebody. I was very young, so it's a second-hand story. But somebody comes in and they use the bathroom, and they come out of the bathroom, and they were like, they were shocked. They said, "You wouldn't believe what's in the bathroom." And the people the people here were thinking, "Oh no, what's in the bathroom?" And they went in and looked in the bathroom, and what was so shocking about the bathroom at our Christian school was that there was nothing in the bathroom. There was no writing on the stalls. There was no, That made a tremendous impression on those people, okay? And for that matter, not just writing. Smells in the bathroom, the dirt on the floor. Everybody knows that the restroom is a place that can get dirty. We all of us, when we go somewhere, well, what's the old saying? You can tell whether a place is safe to eat at or something by checking out the bathroom, okay? So, even the janitor, the secretary, on the inside, not the receptionist. Of course, the receptionist has to be, they're going to greet people all the time. But even the person in the back that's keeping records, just filing records or writing letters, is involved in public relations. And of course, everyone else. Okay, so it is something that I'm learning this year that has always been true. I mentioned it, I think, in our last talk, is that we're talking about this on an introductory level. This is all basically grammar to you. It's all knowledge. It's not something that you really have any direct experience with. But we do have the advantage of having indirect experience with this, because you've all been students. You are students. You're not teachers. Well, now we're getting to the stage where all of us do get a chance to teach once in a while, whether it's people in a nursing home or something like that. But as the whole tenor of the whole year is that we're teachers or administrators, and really we're just hearing about it for the first time. But since we've experienced it in a certain sense, we can use our imaginations. All right? So, I mentioned that we're going to talk about today areas of concern in a Christian school with public relations. So, we're in the area of public relations. What areas, under the subject of public relations, what areas in a school, what categories, what things do schools do or do that they have to do are specific categories to be concerned with or to be aware of. Concern, in some sense, at some times means, it worries us. It's not something necessarily to be worried about, but to be aware of and make sure that we are communicating, right? That we have good character, and what's the other part? Responsible. Megan? Responsible performance and good character, and in a certain sense, that we have some two-way communication. Okay? We can have the best of intentions. We can think, well, we're doing everything that we can. And find out, and never listen to the people that are receiving from us. And if we were to listen or even invite some, even if it's friendly criticism, we would find out that what we're doing is not really accomplishing what we think it's doing. So that's the two-way communication part of things. So, what are some things, and we've kind of, by example, talked about, we've given examples of areas, but what are some areas, if you are a Christian school teacher, you work at a Christian school, or you're the principal, or you're the secretary, or whatever it is, that you think, you can imagine, would be important for your reputation, if you want to put it that way, with your publics. Nicole?
The secretary would kind of have to be involved with the principal, like announcements and things getting out to like the parents.
Okay, so announcements. Let's see here. I don't have that necessarily in my list, but why would what about announcements is important? I'm sorry? So parents know what's happening, right? I think every organization, at times at least, has struggles with this. Communication, right? Communication. We have something taking place and half the people aren't there. Those stupid people, they don't care about our school. They don't care about what's going on. Well, maybe those stupid people didn't know what was going on. They didn't know that they should have been there. Or maybe the communication, maybe they got the communication, but they get so many communications that they don't look at any of the communications. Or maybe they got the communication and it wasn't clear. It was just kind of like, if you want to come. And they said, well, I don't care much for that type of thing. And really, it's kind of a really important thing that they should have been to. Who knows? What about, so let's just say, I'm trying to see if I have something here. I don't. Oh, yeah, there it is. I do have that. So one category, I looked too fast the first time. One category is communication. Okay? So one area of concern or one thing that we would want to be aware of and make sure that we are communicating, receiving feedback, and demonstrating good character and responsible performance is in the area of communication. What about communicating? What about, she mentioned the secretary. What's important about our communications? I mentioned a few things, by example. What should we be careful of with our communications?
Giving too many so they don't pay attention to.
Okay, giving too many. The amount of communication, especially in today. When I got these notes, that probably wouldn't have been a thing. But nowadays, you can get, and school management systems, you know, if a family can give their each parent's cell phone number, their email address, their this account and that account, and a school can bombard parents. You could get a Twitter notice, a Facebook notice, an email, and a text each, and who knows, other things too. You could even get a letter in the mailbox, probably. So there could be too many things. And if the principal is real social, let's put it that way, and it's just tweeting or whatever it is, every mundane thing, parents after a while might think, well, here's just another thing, and they don't understand that it's something that they should know about. So you have to be responsible there, and we should invite some feedback, right? We don't just gather all those ways to communicate with parents and then start sending them things on all of that. We should find out, how would you like to be communicated to? How would you like to receive information from us? We're only going to send, or how would you like to receive pertinent information? Or you could just say, we use our Facebook page for promotion. Okay? If you're already a parent, you might not want to get a notification every time we put something out there. We're letting, if you want to know everything that's going on, every time we have a picture of Billy, you know, swinging the bat or standing in front of the class spelling his words, then sure. But be aware that you're going to get a lot of things there because that's more promotional. That's a marketing channel for us, not necessarily a communication channel. But if you get a text from us, and text we will only use for emergencies. You know, when Sally's sick, you're going to get a text. So there needs to be two-way communication on how we will communicate. What else is important about communication? Jacob?
It's clear and concise.
Clear and concise. Yes. What's something else that should be, you want to be careful of with, or aware, concerned about, aware of with your communications? We immediately think, and we've been talking about electronic communications, but a letter is a communication. A note that goes home is a communication. Clear, concise, what else?
You don't want it to have like grammatical errors or misspellings in it.
Grammatically proper. No misspellings, no grammatical errors. Formatted. That's part of being clear. But a letter should look like it's a letter. Even though we don't use letters to communicate everything like we used to, people still know what a letter looks like. And it should look like a letter. Notes would look different. They look more like a memo if you're a secretarial type student. But still, they have a form, and so people can see, oh, here's a note from the school. So the formatting, the spelling, the sentence structure, the word usage, all of that, it's important to be correct. And so sometimes notes go home from principals, sometimes notes go home from teachers, and all of that is part of our presenting ourselves responsibly. So, concise, clear, accurate, correct. Anything else that you can think of? Yes?
Maybe the time frame. You don't want to send something a month in advance and then have them forget about it. Maybe
Timing?
before.
Okay, timing of that. What about, and so this, we're thinking all announcements here. But what if you receive something? You receive some communication from someone. How about the timing with that? Okay, this is something that I'm terrible with. I need to just make myself do something, write, return information. I hate writing. I hate writing letters. Excuse me. But if somebody asks for some information, you have to get the information to them. Somebody asks you a question. If you don't know the answer, then you need to say, I don't know. Okay? But we can't, people shouldn't send something and then 5 months later they receive an answer from you. Sometimes, because it is really easy to send information, sometimes people just, they forward you an article from the newspaper. I guess this is not all about, but is it, do I have to respond to that? Yeah, depends. So even with salesmen, a salesman comes, you say, I'm going to look at this stuff, and I'll get back with you. It goes on the credenza, and it sits there for 8 months. That's not good. That's not good communication. That's not good performance. So, and let me just add one more thing, and this would be developing a atmosphere or a culture where parents particularly and teachers feel like if they have something to say, what they have to say is welcome. We want to hear it. Okay? So as Christians, we know, we teach our children not to talk back. We read the Bible and we can't talk back to the Bible because it's always right. So we have this authority structure, and authority is important. God sets authority in place. But what we like to think is that we're the same kind of authority as God and no one can talk back to us. No one can have an idea that's better than ours because we're omniscient. We know everything. we can't have that culture where administration says it, no one can question it. We can't have a culture in a classroom. The teacher says it, parents can't say, this doesn't make sense for what are we, I don't understand what we're trying to accomplish here. You can't say, well, just have your kid do it, it'll make sense later on. Okay? There needs to be, in a certain sense, and I don't know if I mean this exactly if we looked up the term, but it's kind of an open door policy where ideas and responses are welcomed and even invited. And that means sometimes you ask for somebody's opinion. And you have to be responsible with that opinion. Because if you take that opinion and then turn it on the person, the next group of people you ask for opinion are not going to give you their opinion, or they're not going to tell you the truth when they give you that opinion. Okay? We never did much with them, so we stopped doing it because it seemed to be kind of more hassle than it was worth. But at one point here in the college, we would ask our graduating seniors to evaluate the teachers they had over the last 4 years. It's kind of a precarious position to put yourself in. For one, you've never taught, so you don't even know what teachers are going through, what they're trying to accomplish. But we figured we would ask our graduating seniors. They would be our most mature students and could be reasonable in their evaluations, and maybe after 4 or 5 or 6 years they would know they would know how to respond to the types of questions we had. And it takes a kind of a mature teacher to be able to look at that and say, this is coming from a student, I can translate that, but also be helped. I had somebody say in one of mine, I can tell that he really knows his stuff, but he's over my head. I can't understand what he's talking about. And I'm like, okay, need to try to make that a little more accessible. At the same time, I can hear that, and I think it's partly legitimate to say, you need to work harder at trying to understand what I'm talking about. I can communicate to my Bible club kids, and they seem to understand it just fine. I'm not telling Bible stories here, and I haven't heard this from any of you, okay? So I'm just, whatever. Maybe they don't understand it just fine. At least they sit there and act interested. There is that thing. The interested look doesn't mean that they are interested. And it doesn't mean that they're understanding. Just because you sit there and go like this, it could mean you're a bobblehead. And bobbleheads can do that. Anyway, communication. So being open to communication, inviting feedback, asking for some type of evaluation. Maybe it's not an evaluation, but informally or formally even, asking parents, what can we do to accomplish together we have a purpose in the training of our children. What can we do to help you accomplish that better? What's not working, or what is working well? So communication, very good. What's another broader type category? Or maybe it's an example of something and it would fit in another category. We need to perform responsibly in our I'm not even getting the interested look. I'm not even getting the, it's like. Okay, you're a school. That's a hint. You're a school. What should you do well if you're a school? Teach. Very good. And what is like a broad category of teaching? Academics. Okay. Academics. You should have good academics. What you say you're doing, you should be performing, right? If you tell your parents that your children will learn a certain way or learn a certain thing, you should be accomplishing that. You should be performing that. You, in a certain sense, as an educator, this could be taken the wrong way, and there's an aspect of it that I'm not referring to. But you, in a certain sense, should know what the children should be educated with more than even the parents. Don't take that the wrong way. Parents are the parents. But you're the one that's studied education. As we talk about the 7 laws of teaching, why do we go to a school? So that the teacher can guide us and steer us away from areas that are going to be dead ends. We're going to learn something, but it won't be useful. Okay? So in a broad sense, we should know, we should know what parts of history are important to learn about and what parts are not important. Okay? Sorry, ladies, but, women in history is not the most important thing. Okay? There are some women that have been very important in history, but not all of them. Not all of them that we have to learn. Not Madonna. And it was years and years and years ago that Madonna got more words in a history book than George Washington. Okay, so in a certain sense, parents are entrusting the education of their children to us. We need to perform. It obviously wasn't a Christian publisher that did that, but publishers do that, and we're the teacher, we're the school. They trust us. They've entrusted us with the education of their children. Some don't entrust us with the education of their children. They educate their children at home, and that's perfectly biblical. It's perfectly allowable. But if we've been entrusted with that education, we need to perform responsibly. So having a good education, one that not only gives them facts, gives them knowledge, but then teaches them the relationships of that knowledge and how to use that knowledge as they grow older is important. In a certain sense, we can argue back and forth about whether achievement tests are good or bad. Parts of them. Students have to go take an ACT test, and it's created by secular educators and publishers and all that. And you get to that science comprehension section, and there's things there that you don't agree with. Let me just say here, none of you might be going to take one, but the achievement test is not the place to stand on your convictions. It's not. It's wondering whether you can comprehend something that you've read. So the question is, in what you read, what was said? Did you comprehend it? Well, if you comprehended it and it's taught about evolution, I say, I understand that it taught about evolution, and this is what it said. Get a good grade. Okay, that's a side note. I heard one of our seniors, and they weren't even talking about evolution, they were just talking about science comprehension, and even when I was taking ACT tests, there was parts that was like, yeah, right, But the essay said something happened 5 billion years ago, and when I was supposed to remember whether it happened 5 billion years ago, I said it happened 5 billion years ago. That's what the essay said. I know it didn't happen 5 billion years ago, but that's fine. Anyway, side note, cut that out. All right, but achievement tests, SAT tests, all of those things. You ought to know, and you don't. We probably will, I think we'll have a lecture on testing, but you ought to know what the achievement test is saying. And you ought to be responsible with reporting what it says. Some achievement tests tell you the amount of growth. Some achievement tests tell you, okay, so like when I was growing up, we had the California Achievement Test, the CAT tests. And the California Achievement Test said how, and when I was in 4th grade or 5th grade, I started getting 13.6s on every category. Okay, 13.6 meant what most people think it means, and what I, proud little sinner that I was, thought it meant was that I was as smart as somebody that's in the 13th grade, the 6th month. Okay, so what is that? That's a freshman in college at about February. Okay? California Achievement Test gives that type of scoring. Is that what it means, though? No. What it means is that somebody in the 6th month of their 13th grade would have gotten the same grade as what I got. There's a difference. Okay? A 4th grader that gets that score is doing very super with 4th grade information, but he doesn't know anything about freshman and college information. Okay? All right? When I'm in 6th grade and I get a 13.6, it doesn't mean I'm ready to go to college. It means a college student would have gotten the same score that I got. I'm doing well. Okay? All right? So if you use California Achievement Test, you're a principal, you use California Achievement Test, you don't say 75% of our students in grades 4th, 5th, and 6th grade are ready to go to college. They're not ready to go to college. They're doing very well. They're doing well above what is, if you're at the end of 4th grade, you should be scoring a 5.0. Right? A 5th grader, you should be right at the 5th grade level. So if you're below 5.0, you're not where you ought to be, according to the test. So, but if you score a 7, doesn't mean, oh, I can skip 5th and 6th grade and go right to 7th grade. No, it just means that a 7th grader would have done as well as you. Okay? So understanding how achievement tests work and being responsible in the reporting. I mean, we can have an advertisement. That's public relations, right? We can say, our kids are so smart. Well, they could go to college. No, they're not so smart they could go to college. Our kids are well beyond where they should be. It's just fine to say that. Right? You see the difference? So testing, that's another. Testing and reporting the results of our testing is important, to be honest, right? Accurate, two-way communication. So academics. What is another area? There's one that I used as kind of an extended example already in class today. It's kind of the gross example. Appearance. What do the walls in the halls look like? What do the stalls in the bathroom look like? What does the garbage along the fence look like? Or is there garbage caught along the fence? Appearance. Okay, so we have communication, academics, appearance. What do the buildings look like? Do they look like they're falling apart? Okay, they shouldn't look like they're falling apart. Can they look old? Sure. It might be that we can't afford brand new buildings, but we can always afford to take care of what we have. Because almost always taking care of what we have is just a matter of effort and time. Sometimes it's money, and normally it takes a little bit of money, but it doesn't always take it almost always takes a small fraction of the amount of money to take care of something than to build something new or to rebuild something. So buildings, and we talked about this with communication, but your literature, if you have a brochure or the letters, they have an appearance to them beside their grammatical accuracy. They have an appearance to them. We have literature here, and you could probably laugh with us in the office at some of our brochures that they're so whatever decade you want to say. They're not current. Okay? Well, if you buy 10,000 of them and you only pass out 3,000 of them, you got 7,000 of these brochures that's, still from the 70s. Now we have once in a while, but one general thing about brochures is that you never put financial information on a brochure because next year it's going to be different. Okay? You might put it on an insert, you put it in a letter, but not on a brochure because brochures last more than a year normally. If you're in a huge organization and you need 1,000 brochures to say what you're going to pass out 1,000 as soon as they come off the press, then put the information there. It's like a letter. But anyway, so appearance, the buildings, your literature, your brochures, etc. the first impressions that you give in a lot of different ways. And this is where even everybody, you know, what if somebody walks in the hallway and the students are walking from one classroom to the next, what does it look like? Okay? This is one of the reasons why we have our elementary students walk in lines. Okay? Okay? It's more impressive. It's also well-disciplined, and when they're not well-disciplined, they get out of line and all of that. It's not just for first impressions that we have them walk in lines, but it's part of it. It helps in that area. So, appearance. As we've talked about these, are there any other areas that come to mind that schools need to be aware of or be careful with, that they don't take advantage of parents or families or anything like that? I have some categories that are going to make sense, but you might think that we've already discussed them. You're just ready for me to give them all to you, or is something else come to mind? Sarah?
Maybe the safety of the building.
Okay. Safety. Yes. I don't have that as a list, but I think that would be with the buildings. Sure. Okay, so I'm saying I'm done talking about appearance. Any other general categories come to mind? Okay, let me give you a few, and then we'll discuss them a little bit. Homework. You would have thought that's about academics, right? It is kind of academic. And time. Okay, so homework. There are a lot of actual studies on how much homework helps learn things. And most studies, well, if we compare what most Christian schools do with what most studies say, and we could argue about whether the studies are secular studies or Christian school studies and whatever, but if we compare what most Christian schools do with what most studies say, students get too much homework in the elementary years and not enough homework in the high school years. Now, I agree that drilling is important and drilling takes time, but if we just think about the time factor, not the homework factor, but the time factor in the families, maybe that is a reason that it is that way. Schools think teenagers have so many things to do they can't give them more homework because the youth pastor wants them to do stuff or whatever. And we figure, well, elementary kids, all they do is go home and do, you know, times table charts or spelling words. But okay, so there's an example going on or just finished going on here. Parents here complaining or, well, complaining. Their students qualified for the spelling bee. Okay? And so they qualified for the spelling bee, and a teacher, or I don't know, it's kind of vague, and I'm not in charge or anything like that, but some teachers not only recommend, but require that students that are in the spelling bee write out a certain number of spelling lessons a certain number of times every night. That takes a lot of time. And they require that the students go over the words verbally with one of their parents a certain number of lessons every night. Okay? That is that doesn't help with your public relations, let's put it that way. It's not that parents don't want to be involved in their children's education, but requiring them to do it every single night, sometimes parents have things more important to do than reading spelling words with their kid. It's not really teaching them much character. It's not really teaching them about, it's not really teaching them to love the Lord their God with all their heart, soul, and mind as they, as we go down the road or before we go to bed. It's just a drill. Okay? So will the student, if none of the other students do that, and this student does do that, will he most likely win? Yeah, he's doing a lot of extra. If a parent decides, I want to do that, that's fine. I'm making this up. But it occurs to me that a teacher heard about a parent that did that with their child, and the child was 1-2 years in a row, and so then they said, well, all parents should do that. Well, no. All parents don't need to do that. All we're doing is having a spelling bee. If a parent wants to do that, they should be able to do that. So, is that a question or just a stretch? Just a stretch, okay. Anyone else need to stretch? We have about 20 minutes left. Any stretching needing to be done as class? So homework, how much homework is given? Almost all schools have in their teacher handbook something about how much homework a child should have. Whether they might say how much per subject or how much per evening or something like that. And it is something that schools ought to be concerned about. And it is and there's a balance to be had there. They probably need to do some homework. They probably need to think about school and academic matters beside the time they're in school. But how long are they in school? I mean, they're already thinking about school and academic matters for about 7 hours out of a day. Do we need to add 2 or 3 more hours to that? Not in the elementary years, most of the time. Okay, so in the upper years, the information, depending on the class, might be more complex, and having, even giving one problem might take 20 minutes to figure it out by the time you do everything that's necessary to solve it. So it's going to take some time, and one problem might not even teach all the concepts or drill those concepts in the way that they should. So homework, time. We mentioned time. We mentioned time in relationship to homework, but also schools need to be careful that they don't think that they're the only one asking for the parents or the students' time. Normally, in Christian schools, parents are a part of a church, and the church has some activities besides midweek service and Sunday services. Sometimes schools can go overboard in this area, and I think we recognize this. Sometimes we have certain times of the year things are really active, and so we say, well, we're not going to have homework over this weekend because there's a lot of things going on this weekend. There's different reasons for that. Sometimes the reason is because we don't want to give more. It's not because the kids are so busy out knocking on doors, because they're just in 3rd grade. They're not spending their time doing that. But the parents are, and the teachers are, and so we want to lighten up the load, their load, okay? But then you start doing that, and then students and even teachers think anytime the church is doing anything, it's a night that they don't have to give out homework, or the students say, well, we're having this. We're having this youth activity. And they're expecting the teacher to say, oh, okay, no homework tonight. So there's a balance there. There should be some, two-way communication between what is good for the child or the student and what is possible to do, and how much work is how much time it's taking to do the work. Even trips, having trips that take the students out of class. Sometimes we give so much work to teachers, okay, this is between administration and teachers, that they don't have time for their own families. Okay. You're not going to have a good teacher if he or she doesn't have time to have a good family. So time. So homework, time. So we have mentioned 5, right? Communication, academics, appearance, homework, time. What, can anybody think of any others? Finances. That's kind of a two-way thing, isn't it? We say we need this much money to be able to do what we're doing. And you say, I can't pay that much money. Okay, now there's not an active negotiation taking place, but people are negotiating. How are they negotiating? By enrolling or not enrolling. If we say, well, we could do so much more if we raised our rates by $1,000 a semester. Let's do that right here with you guys. We could do so much more if we raised our rates by $1,000 a semester. Would some students still come? Yeah. Okay. Because really, you could compare our rates to a lot of other colleges, and raised by $1,000 a semester would still be less than a tremendous number of schools out there. But would some students not come? Yeah. They wouldn't be able to afford it. Or they would say, I know I'm not getting everything that they have, but I can get 60% of what they have over here where I can pay a lot less. Whatever. They might not go through that mental calculation, but there's a give and take. There's some two-way communication. It's not very overt. It's just enrolling or whatever. But if there was more two-way communication, overt communication, what if we said to our, who knows? If we said to, it's little, I think it's more, you could raise rates on parents more than you can on students. That's my thinking. Because parents have an emotional attachment to the education, and students are like, right? Okay, so if you want your child to have the best education, I can say to you, we will be able to build a science lab, and even third graders are going to be able to do experiments in science class if we can raise $50,000. We're going to have a fundraiser, or we're going to raise tuition by $100 per student over the year. And once we get that project, we have these 4 other projects that is just going to make the education for your child be better. Okay, I can handle that. Even though I have 5 children, that means $500 more a year. It's still only $83 a month or something like that. Who knows what it is, right? Okay, so but if we just say, raise the rates. It's time for the new year, new rates. And there's no communication. People after a while can say, every year the tuition goes up, and what do I see for it? Maybe you are doing stuff with it, but you're not letting them know what you're doing with it. Right? Parents need to know what you're doing with their money. Maybe you could say, Christian school teachers are among the worst paid in the whole country. And they sacrifice and all, but we think they're sacrificing too much. We want to give them all $1,000 a year raise. We have 12 teachers. That's $12,000 a year. That's got to come from somewhere. We have to raise tuition rates by $100 per student over the course of the year. Whatever. There's different things, but communicating what you're doing with people's money is much better than just doing it. Just saying, we need more money. Right? So that's part of public relations. Responsible stewardship, responsible performance. Using it responsibly, but then letting people know how you're using it. Helping teachers, even helping parents with budgeting and spending. So that's kind of indirect, but you could host or give a financial seminar. You could help your teachers see how they're wasting their money, how they could use their money better, because you know you're not giving them that much money, but you can help. You know, if every year you give a finances seminar and they never get a raise and they're being paid the same as they were 12 years ago, that's probably going to be kind of tough. Well, we've been giving you that financial seminar. Yeah, I've squeezed, you know, but prices, you know, prices do go up. Gas goes up and whatever. Anyway, so you can give a financial seminar. You can give a financial seminar to parents. Why? Well, they could be sending their kids to the public school for free. There are always fees, but they're spending money. They're spending money that they wouldn't have to if they sent them to the public school. And while it's probably a conviction, that conviction gets tested when they write that check out, when they have a staycation instead of a vacation, right? So helping in the finances, helping parents with finances. You might say, well, we need that money we need their tuition. We can't lower tuition to help them out. But you might be able to help them in other ways with their finances. So finance helps with budgeting, spending, not having too many fundraisers. It sounds funny to hear us say that here. But we are aware of how many fundraisers we have, especially since we have one that's so huge. Okay. But how long is our candy sale? It's 2 weeks. Right? Why is it 2 weeks? Part of the reason it's 2 weeks is public relations, being responsible. Okay? When I was in school, we went up. It is the time when everybody went to school uphill both ways in 6 feet of snow. But we also had a 4+ week candy sale. We started on Thursday, so there was 5 Thursday, Friday, Saturdays, and 4 whatever, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays. Okay. Now, it wasn't nearly as intense as it is now. Almost nobody sold candy on a Monday. We all came in, we counted our money, we had a class party. The top 25 got on a bus and went to the ice cream parlor in South Bend. Okay. So, but after a while, people started saying, well, I can do better if I sell on Monday. Okay. And even in those days, we made a lot of money. I mean, I think the sales when we were doing were $250,000 a year, a sale with $2 a box candy. So that's, I mean, just multiply that out to $6 to $8 box candy. We could have gigantic sales if we kept it up. If we kept the 2 4-week sales, we would be killing our people. It's very strenuous at 2 weeks. Okay, so we didn't take a survey and said how many days could you handle, but we know that it's hard. So we got a certain amount. Our budget with our 2 loans for the buildings that we have, we need a certain amount of money. Well, we had a lot more than that in our first sale several years back, so we shortened the second sale. Then the next year we said, let's take a couple days out of the first sale. We still had the same amount of money as the time before with shorter days. People said, well, it's shorter days. I can still go out as many times. The kids are going to be in school. They're just not going to be in school during the sale instead of being in school during the sale. Okay, so that time has shrunk down, and since the time that we've shrunk it, our sales has hardly gone down. The only amount it's gone down is the part that was excess. It was above what we needed for the budget. And now we have a 2-week sale. You know what Pastor Dameron says over and over again? He can't wait till we can have a 1-week sale. But as long as we have 2 huge bank loans, we will not have a 1-week sale. We're kind of stuck here at a 2-week sale until we get rid of a bank loan or 2. But that is, okay, that takes, if we had 9 weeks of selling instead of 4 weeks of selling, and we still had the huge Wrestle-A-Rama and the volleyball marathon and, volleyball marathon, I don't know. We try to lower it, but a tremendous amount of money that you as a college students raise for volleyball marathon comes from our own church members. So they're giving to that. It's not, we do get money from your relatives that aren't here, and there's a good amount of that. But if a third of our students are from here, where are their relatives? They're here. So, so we are aware of that. And every institution needs, if you go to an educators conference, a quarter of the exhibitors there are telling you ways that you can raise money. I went to a music educators conference in January. And they're like, how you can raise money for your band. You can do this, you can do that. So many different things you can do. After a while, even if it's something that doesn't really affect them or helps them a lot, like a Papa John's card, you can sell a Papa John's card for $10. We buy them for $3. So we get, that's a huge amount of, and the person buys it for $10, uses it once and gets their money back, and can use it 19 more times. Well, that's a great deal for them. But if you have that, and you have, when you go to the store, you have to give them this number, and then we're saving Campbell's labels, and we're saving box tops, and by the way, it's candy sale, and we have these candles here that we're selling, and the fundraisers can just really pile up. Most private educators, even public schools, your bus kids come to you with their little thing. Even public schools raise money with fundraisers. So we have to be responsible, perform responsibly. You guys need to go and yodel before you sing, right? Okay, go ahead. But finances. All right, so we have appearance, academics, homework, finances, time, communication. Let me give you one more. And I don't know if this is exactly the right word. I should probably think of a better word. But when I was talked to or taught this stuff, there wasn't a better word. Positiveness. Perception, maybe. We call that. One thing here is being involved in the community. Community involvement, okay? If you can, a lot of churches do this, a lot of youth groups do this, schools do this. We don't do it, actually. But, this section of the highway is kept clean by whatever. That's a positive image. That's positiveness. That's a community involvement. Helping in something in the community. Our teenagers went to, this wasn't necessarily the school, it was the church teenagers, kind of not much difference, but they went to the police department. They had a police appreciation night. They brought every officer that came, I can't remember what, but they had a little package for them. You guys did that when you were in the teen group, right? So there's that type of thing. And then there's wording of rules in the handbook and other literature. Okay? How you say something. It may not be, it's not that, every newspaper reporter is not looking for a story about your school. But if something happens, they're going to say, well, now why did that happen? And they will be able to find a student handbook, even if you only give it to actual students. Because there's going to be some student that left and still has it and is even kind of maybe a little disgruntled. So how you word things in a student handbook or a teacher's handbook makes a difference. You don't need to change what you do, but you do need to think about how you say what you're doing. Do you remember, I haven't got a chance to listen to them, but isn't that some of what Pastor Roberts was talking about when he was in his messages in chapel? Was that early, in January? Perception and reality? Okay. For real, we do these things, but how do we present the idea that we're doing these things, even to our own people? Because it's not going to get to just our own people. Some stuff is going to go beyond that primary public. It's going to get to a secondary public, and it might even get to a tertiary public, somebody that we have no contact with. But then all of a sudden, it's somewhere else. And it happens, and you know it's going to happen sometime. So, positiveness, and I can't, that's the word I've got for it. Being involved in the community helps with that. And in a certain sense, so if your school kids are involved in the community, then people in the community see your school. They know something about you. They might say, yeah, those are the skirt ladies or something like that. Okay? And they might think that's really weird. But if they see your kids and they're in the girls are in their culottes or whatever, and the guys, they have fun and all that, but they're not tearing things up and all that, then when that news thing hits and somebody's saying how weird you are, they also say, well, I saw those kids. They're not that weird. In fact, they're kind of clean cut, and it's kind of weird that they're such nice kids. Right? And they might say, something's got to be goofy there. They probably beat them to death if they're not nice kids. You know, and somebody's going to think that whether you have nice kids or not. But the general public is going to say, I see those kids all the time. I see those. Every person I've ever met from that place is respectable and honorable. You know, I meet people. Okay, I'll make this statement and we'll be done. But I meet people in Valparaiso and even in Chesterton all the time that have a good impression about Fairhaven Baptist Academy and church, and they've never heard of the CNN thing. Okay? And that's in this area. Yeah. No, anytime I've ever seen anybody from Fairhaven, they are hard workers, they're, you know, all that. Now, if I look at my own video of the Fairhaven Baptist Senior Band playing Victory at Sea or Dueling Typewriters from last year, about the 10th or 11th YouTube video there is the interview with Preacher on CNN. It's still there, but most people don't even know about it. Okay? So you want to get rid of that, but you also want to be responsible performance. You want to be having a positive impact in the community also.